Howdy, y'all.
Welcome to the channel. I'm Josh Wayne.
And I am sick. You know that feeling that you get the day before you get sick? Nothing feels wrong, but you know it's coming. I had that yesterday. But while I may not be doing any gaming videos, I thought it was a good time to do this. Now, I was gonna do this when I wasn't sick and make some sort of joke about the way it looks. Hashtag 420 blaze it, woo. But that's all you're getting. This is a vaporizer, a very old vaporizer. So let's get in a little closer to have a look. Here she is at the closest I can really get the camera without starting to cut it off because it's tall. It's about 12 inches taller. So this was made by a company called Vaporizer. They made two different humidifiers. They made a large one which was primarily made out of copper, and then they made this one which is primarily aluminum. I believe it's aluminum, or it's something very similar. I certainly don't think it's stainless steel. Up here you have the bottle. This is where you put the water in, and you have a nice little handle here, and it does have feet that bring up. These are actually wood. These are not rubber, and they are there for a very specific purpose, because this thing does get very hot. In fact, I have that scar right there, which is probably about 3 years old, is actually from this. And I have a few other scars as well. I'm not sure if you can see. I got one right there, which is from this as well. It does get very, very hot. This was made somewhere between the 1920s and the 1960s, according to people on the internet. Obviously, this was not made in the 50s or the 60s. This is older than that. This is definitely older than that. I think my opinion on this is that it was probably designed in the 1930s and built in the early 40s. I've seen plenty of late 40s vaporizers, and they definitely are made very differently than this. I think these come from the early 40s. I am sure that the big ones come from the early 40s. These might be older, and if somebody showed me an ad from the 1920s with one of these in it, I wouldn't be surprised, or at least not shocked. But I don't think these go back any farther than the 30s. I'm guessing early 40s. Now, this handle keeps the glass in place, and the bottle, some of these have a decal on them. It's not that it's worn off, it's just the early ones, as far as I can tell, don't have them. The later ones do. It is basically a sort of like a medicine or beer bottle. And you have a little interesting cap there with two holes. That allows the water to go through and the air to move with it. Because, you know, there has to be air-water transfer as this is going. This comes apart, and in here it's a little dirty, but not too bad considering how old it is, and considering I do use this every time I'm sick. Now, this is what's called a boiling water vaporizer. Modern vaporizers are not boiling water. They use an electric method to sort of instantly heat the water. Not all that dissimilar from what we looked at last Retro Tech review. Something sort of similar to that. The problem is the way the modern ones do it, they don't heat up the water enough to sanitize it. This does. This actually boils the water. Anything in the water dies. You are not breathing in bacteria. Well, you're not breathing in living bacteria. I may be coughing a lot. Now, much like some of the newer, not all of the newer, but some of the newer vaporizers, you might notice this. And you might be thinking, what is that for? Well, that's for this. If you're from America, you probably recognize this as Vicks. I don't think Vicks is a brand in the rest of the world. I might be wrong about that, but I've seen it come up in a common thing for a video where somebody mentioned Vicks, and it seemed like nobody knew what it was except Americans and Canadians. So I'm guessing there's another brand that takes its place elsewhere. This is chest rub. Now, if you're like me, you hate this stuff. The idea of putting what's basically Vaseline on your chest is kind of disgusting. What it is, though, is very potent. It smells great, and it goes right in here. So literally, you just... It's not the cleanest thing to do, and I will have to wash my hands off, but you just put some in here, you fill it up, and it just stays in here. And I will not have to refill this for the rest of the time I'm sick. In fact, if I wanted to, I could just leave what's in there for the next time I'm sick. I never do that. I always clean it out because I just don't like it sitting in there. For some reason, I have a problem with that. And it does sort of get on the inside of the bottle a bit, but who cares? So let me fill this, and I'll be right back. Now, the first time you fill this up, you always lose some of the water in here, but the next few times you do it, you don't. This lasts about, from the time it starts boiling to an empty bottle, I would say 35-40 minutes. I've never actually timed it before, but that seems to be what it takes. Like I said, you lose quite a bit when you first load it in. You lose that much apparently. But you won't lose that again when you refill it. This is like a one-session thing, and that's how you're supposed to use humidifiers. You're not really supposed to use them all day long. That's not a good idea. And you do want to use hot ones. I have a vintage cold one. It may end up on the channel at some point from the 1960s, made by Sears. I think it was made by Sears. My mom's using that right now because we're all sort of sick. She can't stand the hot ones, but the hot ones are better. Because they help get rid of the bacteria that might be in the water. Still, I use this one. Now, this cup is actually mounted off-center, and that's so that you can actually move this, not when it's on, because this, again, gets very hot. This you can touch, but anything sort of below the glass, you don't want to touch when it's on. Or at least not if it's been on for a few minutes. But you can sort of see, you can line it up with the hole, and the farther over it is, the more of the Vicks you get. The farther away it is, the less of the Vicks you get. It's a nice little adjustment for that. Now you have this front piece here, and I do love how medical this thing looks. It really does, the nice polished aluminum. This decides whether or not you are directing it towards you or just humidifying the room. So this kind of just comes out, whereas this is a more streamed thing. I don't know how well the steam's going to be picked up by the camera. I'm hoping it's going to be picked up quite well. Now, as for the cord, we have it sitting over here. This is actually not the cord it came with. I could go and try and find the cord it came with. I'm sure I have it somewhere. I believe it was green, as a matter of fact. But I use this cord for pretty much anything that has the big two prongs. This is a big one. There's a small one as well. I use this one because it has a nice little on-off switch. Usually, I set this up at my computer table in the kitchen. I've got a TRS-80 Model 3, which runs Androids and Windows. That will be in a video at some point, I do promise. I've mentioned that before, it will be in a video. But it's a good place to set it up. Unfortunately, I can't get to the plug that's behind a stove in there easily. So I set it up once, and I use this to turn it on and off. You can just unplug it from here. The problem with doing that is the plug that it came with is really, really stiff and hard to get on and off because it's in very good shape. This one's not in quite as good shape, but it's still a great plug. So you kind of have to hold it, and that's a little hard to do because you can't touch anything here because it's too hot. So this is just more convenient. I actually use this one for pretty much everything that has this. I use this for my coffee pot. I use this for some of my toasters if I'm making waffles. I use this for the waffle iron. I use this for the slow cooker and the crock pot and the steamer, which two of those are the same thing, but I use this plug for everything. It actually came with a very old, it's sort of a sandwich grill. It'll probably be on the channel at some point, but it opens up flat. It's a really nice sort of little griddle, and I use it for pretty much everything. So let's plug this in, and I'll show it going. And there we go. I put it over a little bit so you can kind of see the steam coming out. I'm not sure how well it's coming across in the camera. I'm hoping it's coming through pretty well. That's why I put it back a little bit and over to the side. But it kind of is going like this way because it faces upwards. Usually what you want is for it to sit like on a desk. This table is a bit too high for the chair I'm sitting in for where I am, but at like a normal desk, this is at a perfect level, just perfect. And even if you want to put it on the floor, once it trails up enough, it starts to go straight up, so you can kind of sit it on the floor and it'll still come up at you if that's where you need to set it. We have carpet, unfortunately. I hate carpet. But I like rugs, but I hate carpet. The point is, if you had a wood floor, tile floor, ceramic floor, vinyl floor, you could just set this on the floor next to you in a chair as well, and you would get the same results. Or you can set it on a table, whichever. I usually, if I use it in my bedroom, I'm not sure I'm sick enough to use it in my bedroom yet. We'll find out. I don't use it when I'm sleeping necessarily, but during the day if I'm in the bedroom and I'm going to be sick for a while, I'll bring in, I have one of those old two-step ladder / can be used as a chair as well, and it's all metal, completely metal. I think at some point there was rubber on it, but that's long gone. I usually set that up in my bedroom, and I sort of turn it into a 6-stand. This goes on it, box of tissues goes on it, medicine goes on it, and something else that at some point we'll do is the cough syrup. I can't take store-bought cough syrup. Can't do it. It makes me have really bad acid that burns my throat for some reason. So I actually make my own cough syrup using an old recipe, partly taken from a book that literally has everything in it. And at some point I'm going to put the book on the channel because it is one of the most interesting books I've ever seen in my life. It literally has everything from how to use an ice cream freezer to how to purify water and bandage people and paint a house and build a chair. It's insane. And then there's a whole portion of it that's nothing but food recipes. It is a 100-year-old book that literally covers everything you can think of. At some point in the future, I'm going to be doing some cooking stuff. I'm not set up for that yet, so that'll come maybe next time I'm sick is when I'll do the cough medicine. But I thought this was a good one. I do have other old medical devices as well. I have heating pads that go back to the 20s. I still have a brand new one from the 40s or the 50s in a box. I'll put those up as a video at some point. Probably just a short video. There's not much to show off with them. It's not like I can really show them getting hot. You can't. You can see, hopefully you can see the very large amount of steam, and it's boiled steam, so it's purified. It's the best thing for you. Hopefully you can see that. But a video that I'm just going to show what something is, like a heating pad, obviously I can't really show you exactly how it works. I might show some of that off at some point. And they may all be in one video, maybe like a sick compilation video or something. But this one I thought was worth standing on its own. It is really interesting. It is very beautiful. I mean, if you're a doctor, I absolutely find one of these and set it in your office. I mean, look at it. It's gorgeous. You know, it's a real medical grade device. It's got that vintage look. It's beautiful, and it works. This is excuse me. This is genuinely what I use when I'm sick. Every time I'm sick, I don't use any other humidifiers. I use this. And one of the reasons I do that is because I'm the kind of person who tends to forget how long the humidifier's been on, and I run it too long, and then I get sicker because I've loosened everything up too much, especially with my ears. I have drainage problems with my ears, and it gets worse when I'm sick. Because this only lasts, again, 30, 35, 40 minutes, it's perfect amount. You know, I let it go till I can't see it anymore, turn it off, and in a few hours I do it again. That simple. I will say, in case you're wondering what happens if this runs out of water, you will not blow up and die. There is a small, very simple device in the bottom, and basically what it is it's a piece of metal, and when it gets too hot, the metal bends slightly, and what happens is it actually loses contact, and that's how the contact is made for the electrical system. So when it loses contact and gets too hot, basically it's turned off. And then once it cools down, it'll turn on again, but it'll turn back off when it gets too hot. It'll probably get hotter than it really normally does, like right now, but it won't burn up, it won't explode, it won't do anything really bad. So it's still a very safe device to use. And with the on-off switch, well, if I can find it, there we go. Very easy. That's off, that's on. And like I said, this doesn't get too hot. You can lift it up from there. I mentioned that these are wood feet. These are on here because they can take the heat, and they keep it up high enough so that it doesn't get what it's sitting on hot. I mean, this is cloth. I'm not worried about this burning up. I have no worry about that whatsoever. I know it's up enough to where I can put my finger under there, and my finger's not even getting warm. I mean, I'm perfectly fine with this. It's 100% safe. The only thing that can be a little troublesome is if you do bump up against it after it's been on for a while. And it can burn you. You know, it's not a bad burn. I scar easily, which is why I still have the scars. The scars never go away for me. It's less of a burn than putting your hand up against a pan from the oven by accident. So, as long as you're careful, it's not too bad. And I know when we're sick, we're less careful, but I was going to switch the camera up, but I just don't feel like it. So, I'll put a link in the description below to my last video, and there is a retro playlist. So I'd love for you to check out my channel, see my other stuff. There might be other stuff you want to watch, either now or in the future. It's a new channel. If you're 100% sure there's not, you can check out the playlist for the channel. There is a retro playlist, and stuff like this will be going in it. And you can subscribe to just the playlist and get updates for just this stuff. I would love for you to subscribe to the channel, but you know, if you don't want to, then you can still watch the videos. You just won't get any of the other videos. I do the same thing personally with BuzzFeed Unsolved. I love that show, but I don't want to be subscribed to BuzzFeed because BuzzFeed. That's it for this time. Happy trails.